All right. Well, welcome again, everyone, to another exciting interview with a physician entrepreneur. We are joined today by the lovely Dr. Alicia Shelly, who has been just killing the game when it comes to speaking. It's so amazing because when you hear her tell her story, she'll tell you that she never thought she'd be doing this. And that is just so amazing, So she's going to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her background. Welcome, Dr. Shelly.
Thank you so much for having me, Makita. So my name is Dr. Alicia Shelly, and I am a board-certified internal medicine and obesity medicine physician, a diplomat of the American Board of Obesity Medicine. And I actually started off my entrepreneurial, I guess can you say, business with actually hosting a podcast called the Back on Track Achieving Healthy Weight Loss Podcast. And I ended up wanting to do courses. So I wanted to do classes and things of that nature, be more of a course creator. But then I realized I didn't quite care for it as much. And who's to say I may go back to it, but it wasn't something that was bringing me joy. And so I ended up doing a speaking opportunity, and I realized I loved it. I love being on stage, even though I was nervous, don't get me wrong. But when I got up on stage, I started looking at people, it just like the energy, the blood started rolling. Like I was in my element. I just knew that, hey, this is where I need to be. Even though you have to prepare, even though you have to memorize all these different things, when you get there, it's such a moment of satisfaction. And so I opted for the last, I would say 6 months, I've been trying to work on my speaking career, my speaking business, where I'm able to talk about obesity medicine, be that expert, and be able to help others live a more healthier life.
Oh, that's beautiful. And, I want to backtrack a little bit more because when you started your podcast, were you confident about speaking back then? Were you confident about doing the podcast? Were you
I was nervous about the podcast when I started it, but it was never, talking to people wasn't a problem for me. I had no problem interviewing people or even talking myself. So I guess, it didn't bring me, I enjoyed it actually. It didn't necessarily make me feel nervous or anything. Like I did not like courses. I was like, oh, I have to do, like, it was like dread for me. It was just dread. I may do it in the future, but hopefully it won't be that same type of emotion that I have.
And I like what you said because, so many times we come up with a business idea, we come up with a business plan because you're an employed physician. You love your job, you love where you're working, you're not planning to do your own practice, but you just felt like you wanted to build your brand, and which is great. But in doing that, you had an idea that you might do courses, but I love that you're able to pivot along the way and realize, you know what, this is not working for me, and choose something else.
Oh yeah. And it's good sometimes to listen to yourself to figure out, is this something that I enjoy? Like, am I not looking forward to be on? Even though I love people, don't get me wrong, but it's like we were doing a course and I'm like, man, I got to show up again. Like, it was I was not having it. It was just too much. So you're right. And it's good to be able to realize that and pivot to something where you enjoy.
Exactly. If you have to do it, you should enjoy it. Now, tell me some of the wins that you've had since you started speaking. So that first time, you're like, wait a minute, I really enjoyed that. So did you go from? So what was the process from going to to enjoying that to where you are now as a highly sought after speaker? But then, if you can start off with telling us some of the wins first.
Oh yeah. So some of the wins I would say, so in these 6 months, which has been crazy, let me just tell you, I have had the opportunity to be be interviewed on CNN International.
Wow.
I've been able to be on different on platforms. I've as far as thought leaders platform speaking series through actually TEDx. I've been able to book 2 TEDx talks this year coming up in the fall. And then on top of that, I've been a speaker at the regional NMA, Region 2, my local Georgia State Medical Association. My first speaking engagement where I knew this was for me was at the Obesity Medical Association. I had applied and they accepted, and I was surprised. I was like, really? They like the idea? So, and then getting on there and just realize like there's 200 people in this room, and I wasn't nervous as soon as I started talking.
Wow.
So it was just kind of, I felt comfortable in that element. And so I knew that this is for me. I'm looking forward to, especially next month, as NMA, the national NMA will be having their annual meeting in now I can remember the name of it. And all I can think of is it's in New Orleans, excuse me. All I'm thinking of LA, which is Los Angeles or Las Vegas. I'm like, that is not right. It's in New Orleans. So I'm looking forward to speaking there as well. And then also at my Georgia State American College of Physicians. So it's been an honor to be able to have that opportunity to speak and to speak on a topic that I love, which is obesity, and how we can improve and how we can improve other people's lives.
That is awesome. And then she didn't mention Fox. She was on Fox too.
Yeah, that's right. I was on the local Fox channel. Exactly. I'm sorry, I'm digressing. I was featured in the Reuters online article. So it's been a lot of wins in this last 6 months, which was amazing because I didn't expect it at all. And I did not expect it at all.
And it's really amazing too to think about it because, it's like, I want you to talk a little bit about what you learned from EBS that helps you get these wins, because the wins didn't just fall into your lap. Especially when you talk about the 2 TEDx talks, it didn't just happen. There are some things that you did, there's some things that you put in place, there's some chances that you took on yourself. Like you posted in the group recently about getting an invitation to do the CNN International, and kind of thinking, should you do it or not? But then you just decided to do it, and it turned out to be great. So can you tell us some of the lessons you learned?
Oh, yeah. So when I thought about doing a podcast, I had never done a podcast before. I'd done maybe a couple courses and bought a book, which helped with kind of starting the podcast. But around the same time as I released my podcast, I joined EBS. And so what EBS had taught me is kind of how can you become that a podcast that's more successful by marketing and putting yourself out there. And so the one thing because I could have a podcast and no one know anything about it.
It's true. That's true.
Like maybe you Google, maybe Google picks it up. I don't know. But, and I had no idea about what marketing was, besides, I just posted it and then people will come.
And post it and walk away.
Well, I know. Sometimes we think, if I just do it, everybody will come. No, you have to market. And so that's what I would say EBS has helped me to be able to develop. Some of the tools that we teach, number one is mindset, realizing that we are the expert, because even though I'm a doctor, we're probably all doctors here. We don't see ourselves the expert. I do this all day, every day. I ask people ask me questions. I answer it to the best of my ability. I'm doing all these interviews and not even realizing it. Because with EBS, not only I sometimes would not consider myself the expert, but then with EBS, they worked on my mindset that helped me to realize that I am the expert and people need to hear what I have to say. So I have to overcome my fear of, applying to be a guest on somebody's podcast. I have to overcome my fear of disappointing others. I have to overcome my fear of messing up. Sometimes you just have to do it dirty. And then you see what happens and you're surprised that it works out, because I do find, and being a type A personality, I do have problems with perfectionism. And so I have to remind myself it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to get done. And the other thing that EBS teaches too is with the marketing piece is that you need to go out there and actually, get out there on other people's podcasts, reach people that aren't in your particular group or who aren't already tuned into you, because other people need to hear what you have to say. And you don't know the lives you're changing by just some words that you said. One of my cousins told me, and I was surprised. She told me that she's like, I sometimes listen to your podcast and I do it because it gives me inspiration. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do. Nobody leaves a comment. I have no clue the impact this is helping. But and so sometimes you have to reach those other people. You have to reach those people that don't know you exist. And how do you do that? On other people's podcasts. So the one thing we teach is at least doing 4 podcasts or more interviews to get your name out there, to get your message out there. And so that has helped me by me actually marketing, talking to people on podcasts, doing YouTube lives, doing Facebook lives. It prepared me to be able to speak on an interview. On CNN International, I had the young lady who interviewed me was like, well, I'm going to push back on you on this, is what she said. And she asked me her question. And I was like, oh, in the mind, I was like, oh, she's pushing back. This is an easy question. Oh, yeah. Let me just tell you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes, ma'am. And it just reinforced that I was the expert, but I was prepared for any hard questions that people give me. And even if I didn't have the answer, I was prepared with what my response would be or how I would filter until I figured out what the right answer was. But it prepares you by doing it. As you get your reps in, you get more comfortable, you're more friendly, you're more at peace when you talk to people. I like to compare it. If you look at LeBron James or Steph Curry, I think during the playoffs, LeBron James came in like 5 hours before the game and he was just shooting, practicing over and over and over again. So that when it came to the big game, when he did that shot, it went in. It was nothing but net because he had positioned his body to be able to do it. It was like muscle memory. And that's the same thing with these reps. When we're going to the podcast episodes, when we are writing our articles, we're getting better with how we write and how we communicate. We are preparing ourselves for the big game so that when CNN calls like, hey, would you mind doing an interview? I would love to do an interview. What time can I do it? And I show up professionally ready. I'm answering their questions. I'm engaging. And they're like, oh, thank you so much for coming. And whatever question they ask me, I'm ready because I'm the expert and I know it. And I know the answer. And if I don't know it, I can be like, well, I haven't seen that in my practice, but X, Y, and Z, here's what the studies show. And I can be able to rattle it off with no problem, with ease, and not seem like overwhelmed or seeming like, TV, they don't like a lot of, dead air. Yeah. So you have to kind of keep moving. So it prepares you. So EBS has definitely prepared me for this. The other thing I would say is that it's very encouraging because you're around a group of people who are like-minded. People who are in maybe not necessarily becoming a speaker. They may be trying to build their practice or they may be doing their courses. And we all go through different mindset. We all go through different highs and lows, valleys and mountain peaks, mountaintops experiences in this journey. And it's nice to have that support because when we go back to the TEDx talk, I had signed up with a different course for the TEDx talk last year, the beginning of 2022. And I had such mindset, like I couldn't figure out what I was going to talk about. I'm like, well, do they even want to hear what I have to say? Like I had all this mind drama around it. It literally took me from January to October before I was like, well, maybe let me go ahead and send them my application template.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to say it. I didn't think what I had to say would benefit anybody. That's the mind drama I had to work through. And as I saw my other classmates, they were booking TEDx talks. I talked to them and be like, hey, how did you do this? How did you figure out what you're going to say? So I had that support to help me. And the reason why I did in October, because I'm like, oh my God, I have 2 months. I think they said, after a year, they're going to cut me off. So I better get started. They did not cut me off, which is fine. But sometimes you need like a little something to push you. And I was so surprised because in our group, they're like, it sometimes takes like 80 to 100 applications before somebody chooses you. I had applied to 25 places and I didn't realize I had gotten 2. And the reason why I kept applying because I didn't see that I had been accepted. I missed that email. And then I was looking back and I was like, oh, that's what that email was. So, but I kept applying. And then one last thing, I know I keep saying one last thing that EBS taught me is to keep going.
Keep
keep
going.
applying, keep
Mhm.
pitching, keep doing what you're doing. Because what happens is we get discouraged, but as we keep doing, we get better. We refined our message. I found that as I kept applying for the different TEDx talks, I had like a whole application. I was cutting and pasting, but then they would ask something different in a different way. And then I refined the talk a little bit better. So I
Mhm.
actually improved my whole talk just by
Yeah.
applying. And the
Oh,
same is with the
wow.
pitch. So pitch yourself, pitch some more. And marketing, market. If we look at McDonald's, they're always marketing. Coca-Cola, they're always billion-dollar companies, still marketing. So you always have to market yourself. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And, I love what you started off with saying that EBS taught you that you're the expert, you're the subject matter expert, and then you continue to work on that and continue to craft your message, continue to be consistent in marketing, continue to be consistent in relaying in what you were doing, and continue to be pitching, continue. I mean, from podcasts, from just having your podcast, when having a podcast is a big deal in itself because of the consistency and the work and the marketing involved in it. But from that podcast, you being consistent and continue to pitch yourself, landed you here you are now, where I mean, before you know it, you're going to have to start turning away speaking engagements, because you're in New Orleans on Wednesday, then.
I know, you're like, wait a minute, I still got to work. My job is not going to be okay with this.
So I'm just very excited for you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing what's possible, because this is something you love doing, and it's something that you've discovered about yourself that you're actually good at. I mean, and then other people, the marketplace has said that you're good at it, and you wouldn't have discovered that if you hadn't started.
Oh no, before EBS, there was kind of a void. I knew that I needed to do something. I just didn't know what it was, and I wasn't feeling fulfilled. Just yesterday, I was talking to a group of high schoolers, and I was telling them when I grew up, I wanted to be a talk show host, an actress, and then a doctor. And so the fact that now, not only am I still a doctor, but I have a little podcast, which is like a talk show host. I'm speaking, which is a little bit of acting too. So it's kind of like you put everything that you wanted all in one, and I would not have been able to find that without EBS.
And it was already in you. That's the funny part about it. So EBS just helped draw it out, and then the community and Dr. Una helped you, nurture it. So that is really awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Shelly. We want to show you some love. We want to support you. If you see yourself as, listen to Dr. Shelly, it's like, man, I want to do something like that. I want to figure out those dreams that I had hidden, within me and live them. Send an application to entremd.com/business, and let's have a conversation about it. Dr. Shelly, how can we support you? How can we find you on social media?
Yes, you can find me at Dr. Shelly MD, DrShelly MD, at Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, wherever you like to use your social media. And then definitely check me out on my podcast on the Back on Track Achieving Healthy Weight Loss podcast.
Subscribe to her podcast, people. You're going to be inspired just like her cousin was.
Yes.
And share so who does we need to share your podcast to. What's your target audience for the podcast? Who does your podcast help?
So my podcast helps women probably ages 30s to their 40s who are trying to get on track with their weight loss. Sometimes with having kids, work, family, you get a little off track. So it kind of helps you, gives you that inspiration to kind of keep getting on track, keep moving forward, and changing your health trajectory, not just for you, but for the rest of your family. Because we all know who runs the family, which is the wife.
Yeah. And then whatever you cook, that's what the family eats. And your health choices reflect in your family. So that's really great. It's very inspirational and supportive. I can see that being like a weekly support group, That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Shelly. It's been wonderful talking to you. I'm looking forward to your next speaking engagement, and keep looking out for her, because she's going global.
I am. Thank you.